Hi everyone, this is Johnson Chong and welcome to this month's Sage theme. This month is all about fire. It is about exploring willingly our egos and what a healthy ego means. So in order to delve a little bit deeper into that, we need to understand what the value is behind our identity, and to understand that identity is a great opportunity for self-discovery, and also at the same time that identity is a trap if we blindly believe in what it is that we set out to discover. What is identity? Identity is an opportunity to focus. It's a framework and it narrows our passions into specific jobs. It allows us to either specialize or to concentrate on the things that we excel at. Identity is the very foundation that industry and organization, government is built on. So let's say, for example, I were a brilliant architect and I specialize in creating eco-villages for poor developing regions. So after I die, I would be recorded in history as the social architect who enhanced the lives of many. And then the history books would associate me with an identity of a vehicle in contributing to great change. So on the flip side, there's a huge flaw with this word identity because the word identity seeks to label and categorize for the purpose of separation. The word I in identity in itself is a word that creates division. I versus you. I'm different from you, therefore you cannot know what it's like to walk a mile in my shoes. So it's in this way that we've been trained to memorize very specific identifications since the moment we were born, like responding to the name that was chosen for us, or memorizing our birthdays, as if knowing all of this information is going to keep life or the universe from judging us. And if life carried on with minimal stimulation, we would just continue living with these many identifications, either knowingly or unknowingly, until we die. Now, what if I were a brilliant architect who also enjoyed trading in the stock market, dancing, playing the piano, and a plethora of other things that made me very unique? On my business card, would I be satisfied as only the brilliant architect? Or am I also the architect, trader, dancing piano man? So our culture, it craves specialization and it frowns on multidimensionality. But what about those who feel compelled to explore coloring outside the lines? So in order for humanity to continue evolving into a more global family, we need to integrate this narrow framework of identity, ego, with the expansiveness of non-identity or non-ego. Now, is that even possible? Now, logically speaking, no. Creatively speaking, if we think outside the box, yes. So in my world, there are essentially two ways we can identify with identity. There is the way of identifying with the individual self. And then there's the way of identifying with the universal self. One is associated with our birthday, what our zodiac sign is, what our favorite food is, our job title, etc., etc. It's all the labels we've accumulated throughout our years of civilized living. And then the other relates to our ability to connect to the vast expanse of energy that created the earth, the sky, and everything beyond the narrow scope of human perception. It is a matter of reconciling this separation that we've created between thinking that we're just a small drop of water in this great big ocean that we're living in. So if I were, let's say, a drop of water flowing in the ocean, this is what all the spiritual teachings tell us. Now, how silly would it be to say that I'm only a drop of water, when as a drop of water, I'm also the entire ocean? The yogis call this Atma and Paramatma, which essentially, this ancient concept, it highlights that individual consciousness is inextricably woven into the collective fabric of all consciousness for all of eternity. So for the longest time, I remember that I never wanted to work a 9-to-5 job. It just wasn't me. And ever since I was a teenager, I've been very blessed to do what it is that I either am passionate about or what it is that I love, and not fit that 9-to-5 formula. I even thought that waiting tables while I was going to acting school in New York City was much, much better than working a 9-to-5. And after I got a bachelor's degree as a classically trained actor, my dream was to go to Los Angeles and audition for sci-fi shows and do the occasional play that came my way. Life did not have it that way, and I was led on this spiritual adventure instead. Now, in the beginning of this spiritual adventure, I suffered waves and waves of anxiety and depression because I held on to this title of, I'm an actor. I paid all this money to go to school, so I'm an actor. And I'm gonna suffer, and I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna do all these other things so that I can live and achieve my dream of being an actor. It was like a snake gripping and holding onto a rat. I couldn't let go of that label. Now, life would have been so much easier if I had just trusted sooner in letting it go. So fast forward 3 years later, I surprisingly found myself in the Ganga River, in the foothills of the Himalayas, letting go of the entire notion of Johnson as actor. After many hours of yoga and meditation, I found myself called to go on this 3-month spiritual journey to India. And there was this indescribable need to let go of the past, because I knew somewhere deep down inside that it was so vital for me to do that, to shed that, so that I could meet who I was becoming. I met a spiritual mentor who guided me, and she gave me deep inner work, and then she assigned me to do all of these prayers and visualizations in the river to practice on my own. So I was that weirdo in the middle of the Ganga River, praying to the river, praying to the sun, praying for the universe to show me who I am. And in that one moment of surrendering my identity, my ego, to the full power of nature all around me, I experienced clarity. I realized that I became an actor not because it was my true calling. I realized, and it was really difficult at the time, I realized that I became an actor to voice everything that I was not allowed as a child. It was this outlet for all the times I felt that I was less than perfect. And it was an outlet for all the times I felt rejected when I looked in the mirror. It was an outlet for all the times my parents told me I was wrong, and all the times they hurt me inside and out. So theater and performance actually, at that point in time, ushered in a phase of deep self-discovery. But in essence, it was motivated by rebellion, in the hopes that defying my parents, this would hurt them. It was more about me accepting my homosexuality and not cringing every time I opened my mouth to speak. And so in that profound moment in the river, I felt the presence of the elements fully alive in my body. And I realized that I was not the gay wounded son. I was not a brother. I was not a lover. I was not an actor. I was not a dancer. I was not a yoga teacher, and I was not even a man. I realized that I was nothing. And yet, at the same time, I was fully feeling everything. I could feel that I was the pulse thrashing through the river's currents, the fine grains of sand underneath my feet. And I felt that I was the sunbeams bouncing off my face, and the blue sky that reflected into the river. I was the eagle who soared overhead, and at the same time, I was the eagle's call to freedom. I felt a complete softening of the ego. And from that moment on, I did not care so much what others labeled me as, because ultimately, I know inside that I am labelless. I recognized that in my nothingness, I am also many things. And in that knowing, I chose to no longer be affected by the labels in this game of life that we're all playing. As all spiritual wise men will have said in one way or another, how terribly boring it is to have successfully mastered a mountain and then have chosen to stay at the top. The drive that motivates humans into being is the same drive that moves a weed to take over an entire garden. When one mountain is conquered, we naturally move on to the next. There is this insatiable thirst to become something more than we currently are. For example, if we've earned all the money we sought to earn, we might look to give back to charity. If we have learned all the things that we can learn from, let's say, a stagnant relationship, we might peacefully separate and move on. This drive is not about right and wrong. It's not about who I am now and who I thought I was and who I'm supposed to be. It is about an opportunity to see if we can gracefully balance between our wants and allowing things to be. And when this balance of integrating our identity and our non-identity is achieved, we then are able to unify our personal story with the collective story. And it is then, and only then, will we emerge with a sense of true purpose and knowing how invaluable we are to the world.